Everyone should see the PowerPoint on the screen here. All right, so what we are talking about today is Cayuse SP role management. And in the past, I have combined this with the reporting functionality, but I'm not doing that right now because we have discovered some issues with the reporting. And so we're not confident that the reporting in SP is accurate from that reporting tab. Now, although the list that you see from the proposal dashboard, you know, where you can see your awards and proposals, those are all accurate and you can export those to Excel. So I would encourage anyone that's going to be doing any reporting or pulling things to do it through that functionality. And if you need something else, let us know to see if it's something that we can help with, right? But I want to just point that out because I think it's important for all of us to know that let's just try not to use those reports. And I've actually kind of changed our FAQs and taken the materials off of our website for that. But if anyone comes up to you or you know anyone's doing it, say, Cassie says, you know what, let's wait. Let's just look at those for your proposal dashboard, your award dashboard. Those are working fine. Okay. All right, so the learning objectives for today, because we're talking about role management. So because this class also counts for partial credit for our staff development class that I think it's routing, professional profiles, and role management, I've tried to embed some of the other ERA system guidelines in here. So we're not going to go over those ERA systems in any kind of detail at all, but I have incorporated some of those general rules and roles so that we can get familiar with them because I think that that's important for us all to know. So today I hope that you'll know some of the general ERA guidelines and common rules. So ERA is Electronic Research Administration. That is the plethora of systems that we're using today, right? Like what Cayuse SP, Cayuse 424, NSF Fastlane, ERA Commons, all of those Proposal Central, anything that you're using for your research administration process is technically an ERA system. So I think that's good to know. Also that you'll know the responsibilities and functions of a role manager. So a role manager is a role that you are given in Cayuse that allows you to give access and permissions to the unit that you're a role manager for. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you get that access as well. And that you'll know the critical Cayuse roles and how to establish them. There are some roles that are required for any unit using Cayuse SP and also some others if they're using Cayuse 424. And then you'll be able to explain the SP and 424 routing process because we use Cayuse quite heavily here. So I think it's important for us to kind of know, actually, it is important for us to know the routing and approval process. That is just essential. That is an essential thing for us all to know when we're doing these systems or using these systems. Also that you'll know what the Cayuse 424 professional profile is and how it relates to Cayuse SP. So we're not going to go into the profiles today. I just want to talk about it a little bit so that we can see how they work together because all of our profiles are actually managed in 424. So even if we're not using 424, we still have to go in there to manage the profiles, right? So we'll talk about that some more. Today's handout. So if you're online, you don't have the handouts, but I will email them to you after the class. Or actually what I'll probably do because I'll be updating the website if I haven't already, and so I'll email that link out to everybody. That way you can access them online. That's probably better than me just emailing you the documents because then you'll have a link to that's actively changing, right? That the link will stay stagnant, but the materials update. So I'll hand these out to the people that are in the room today. You will have today's PowerPoint. And it's actually all of the slides, 2 pages per slide. Then you should also have a document called Cayuse SP Tips. And this is just, we're not going to go over this document, but it's just some things to help you avoid some common issues that we run into in Cayuse and just to use SP like more effectively or as effectively as you can. Then there's this handbook for role managers, which looks like I updated it Monday. It was the 18th, Tuesday. So I think it should be pretty accurate and current and up to date. This other document is a quick reference to Cayuse SP, which I created not that long ago to assist you in just kind of like having a broad high-level overview. I know I've had people ask me for just things that are more pictures and less words, which is very hard to do. I think Sandy, I think you remember the conversation. And this is something I thought about, maybe this is a way to do it, because I can't think of another way that would go into any detail. But if anyone has ideas like that, thank you. But I'm super open to any ideas to make the systems easier to use. Also, if you're here in the room, you have an evaluation sheet. So if just after we take today's class, if you could fill it out and leave it with me, that would be awesome. You'll see it's confidential. There's no place for your name. Of course, I'm going to read them. So, I mean, it's as anonymous as it can be. And then I have my student, the only student we have, he goes ahead and inputs them for me so that I can track them. And really, it's to help me see if these classes are helpful, if I should continue a specific topic, and then also or how to improve it. And then there's also a section where I think it's just additional comments, but you can add if there's a topic you're interested in learning more about, or you think that we would be something we'd be able to provide, right? Because if it's not related to SPO, I can't really provide it. But if you tell me because you're not sure who it's related to, then I can always go ahead and let you know if I know who it is, I can let you know who you would contact to make that request. Okay, so I think you still need the handouts over here, and I've got you checked in. Thank you. You're welcome. All right, so just in time too. And then also, just so you know, I'm recording this one, but I have the video off. So, all right. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We are going to talk about some general electronic research administration guidelines and common rules. I say ERA constantly. That is an acronym that is just so much easier than saying the whole term. We'll talk about the Cayuse Research Suite overall, which I think all of you have heard my spiel, but you will hear it again. We'll talk about role management. We'll talk about the proposal and application routing process in SP and 424, and we'll talk about resources. As always, there is a slide for questions, but you can ask as we go through. Go ahead and ask your questions if you have them. If you're online and you have a question, try to unmute yourself and just interrupt me if you need to. And if that doesn't work, then send a chat, and hopefully I will be able to see it so that I can monitor that. Okay, so now let's talk about some general guidelines. Whenever you are using an electronic research administration system, there are some general rules that you can follow. However, it's important to realize that every system is a little bit different, right? So you should always check out their resources and see what they have. Just because there's one role in NSF Fastlane doesn't mean that's going to be the same role in ERA Commons, for example, or they just may work differently. So familiarize yourself with whatever systems you're using. I would encourage you, if you have the time, if you know you're submitting something in a system you've never used before, check it out, right? Just check it out before you actually go into it. It can ease that anxiety that we all feel sometimes when we're under pressure. Okay, so general rules. You always submit to SPO and Cayuse SP. So regardless of if you're using another electronic research administration system to apply to the sponsor, you always have to submit a proposal, AKA internal processing form, AKA IPF in Cayuse SP. Now, depending on what system you're using and if SPO has access to it, you may not need to upload the full application materials into SP. You may just need to upload the minimum documents and then the final application package, right? But the key is that we have to have access to that other system. And we'll talk about what those documents are that you always have to submit in SP regardless. In addition to Cayuse SP, another system might be required for an application to the sponsor. So in those cases, you want to follow the agency and program-specific guidelines. They will tell you what systems may or have to be used. If it says system to system or S2S, at UC Davis, that means 424 can be used. However, if you're applying to NSF, I don't care if it says that, use Fastlane. If you're applying to NIH, you can use 424 or Assist. It is up to you. If you're doing a multi-component like center scale grant to NIH, we recommend using Assist instead of 424. 424 works. We've done it. But Assist provides these really nice summary tables, and it's just going directly into that system. It's a little bit more, I'd say, aesthetically pleasing. So some people prefer to just stick with 424 all the way, and that is completely fine. It definitely works. But Assist sometimes is a little bit easier to use, I'll say, and just puts everything in a specific format. Another thing to think about, though, is just, so we have seen some calls, and it's a little bit ambiguous. I can't think of the exact language, but sometimes it seems like they're telling you you have to use grants.gov, but that's not really what it is. So if you're not clear, reach out to proposals@ucdavis.edu. Send us that RFA or RFP, whatever that, program guidelines are in, and tell us, I read this on section whatever. Can you confirm that I have to use grants.gov? And it's good for us to know ahead of time, because we actually don't really use grants.gov. So it'll allow us to prepare and do whatever needs to be done to get that, ready to use. Usually you don't use grants.gov, and it's just the language is a bit ambiguous. So if you're not sure, reach out to us early at proposals@ucdavis.edu. Also, if you have to use another ERA system, register and create that account early. So I talked about going in and checking out the system early. Well, to do that, you have to register and create that account. But it's really important to do that early, because depending on the system, the account creation could take several days. It could take a week. It just depends on that sponsor and what system they're using and what their requirements are. A lot of times they have to, the accounts have to be approved by SPO, so that adds another layer. I think there might even be some systems that SPO has to create it, but just read it. Just read, figure out what needs to be done, and you can contact SPO ERA help at UC Davis if you're not clear. Now, if it's Cayuse, use the Cayuse email, orcayusehelp@ucdavis.edu. But if it's not Cayuse, go ahead and reach out directly to the ERA help. It's the same person, but it allows us to kind of manage those boxes, right? So even though you're going to see it's almost always Terry, every now and then I might help with something, but still, it's better for us to keep those separate. Also, because others, it's different people have different accesses to those boxes. So like I have access to the Cayuse one, but not the ERA one. But I can, if you send something to Cayuse and Terry's not around or whatever, I might be able to help. So that's kind of the point, just to use those two emails. Okay, so more general guidelines. Proposals in these other systems must be accessible by SPO and endorsed by us. Sometimes SPO has to submit, and sometimes the PI has to submit. But if the PI has to submit, it has to be approved or endorsed by SPO before it's submitted. So again, read those guidelines. I feel like that's my mantra, read, read, read. But it's really important, and I know sometimes we don't feel like we have the time to read something all the way through, but it's really, really important to do it. And I'll admit, I skim. If you're a good skimmer, you don't have to read things word for word, but you do need to, some sections I do. And when I'm reading proposal, like guidelines on what I need to submit and what format, I read that word for word. I highlight the important pieces. And you'll get used to reading a lot of the different calls as well, right? You'll get used to that. So, points of contact. The program contact is the principal investigator, the lead PI, the contact PI. The admin contact in these systems is not you. It is SPO. If you know who the award analyst will be, you can give it to them. You can list them, or you can just do this email, awards@ucdavis.edu, and it can go to the general one. Actually, even if it's a system that doesn't tie it to a profile, I would say it's better to always have it going to that main inbox, because as we know, things can get reassigned based on a workload or whatever happens. It's the world, things happen. Financial contact is James Ringo at CGA, and that's his email address. This is true for all ERA systems, unless there are guidelines in there or instructions that say something very clearly different. But in general, that's the truth. Also, if you're using an electronic system like 424, one of these system-to-system submissions, or NSF Fastlane, you want to ensure that someone, you or the PI, is available while we're reviewing it, because we may have questions, we may have comments, and we want to get everything submitted on time. So just making sure that someone's available during that review process. And not that you have to be like at our beck and call, but just somebody that we can reach out to and get issues resolved quickly so that everything gets submitted in a timely manner. Any questions about that? Okay. And I know like this isn't super complicated, but it is a lot. And when you're dealing with multiple systems, it can be a lot to remember, I think. So I'm trying to put it in a way that will help us just kind of get the gist of how they work. So common ERA roles. This is in general. We're not talking about Cayuse yet. So you have your lead principal investigator or the PI. That is the lead PI or contact PI on grants with co-PI. So if you have co-PIs, then you're going to have a contact PI as well, which is your lead PI. That is the person who is responsible for the whole project. You have co-principal investigators that have the same responsibility as the lead PI. They are not always allowed, but when they are, that is the appropriate role. A co-investigator is a primary contributor, but does not have programmatic decision-making. So that's the way to think about that. These two sometimes get confused. And just remember, this co-PI has the same responsibility as the lead PI. Yes?
Do they sometimes call co-PI co-I?
Yeah, I think it's...
And so like sometimes in your co-I would have the same responsibility as the lead PI because it depends on what they call it.
I think there are some funders that do sometimes call a co-I a co-PI and use that. So again, that's why you have to read all of the terminology and make sure. And also when you're using a system like 424, it's important to know, and we'll go through those rules, it's important to know exactly what they mean because it might be a little bit different than what the agency is saying that you're applying to, but you want to make sure to indicate it correctly. And when you're in 424, for example, say you have a subaward to a subrecipient at an external institution. You would not list that person as a co-I or an investigator or anything like that on the grant, but on that subaward mini proposal in 424, you would indicate their role as other, and then in the field that pops up, do cite PDPI. So PD is project director, which is the same as principal investigator, right? This is a really good question. Yeah, so it's good to know. These are common in what the systems use. And then also some of them have this other authorized user. This is not a PI or a co-PI. They're not an investigator, but they might assist with budget preparation or proposal file updates. So that could be, a staff person or a postdoc or somebody who's helping out with the grant, but they're not on it. You've got the reviewer. Those are people who review proposals on the behalf of the funding agency. So that would be directly in like ERA Commons if somebody's serving as a reviewer. Financial administrator it gives access to financial services. So these people can see cash request history, etc. So if you're using one of those systems at another sponsor where you're doing your award management, right? That's when you would see that. Okay. These are common roles that are just for SPO people. The Sponsor Projects Office, that's pretty clear. Sponsor Program, Sponsor Projects Office, right? A lot of places call it Sponsor Projects instead of Sponsor Programs. Authorized Organizational Representative, or AOR. This is the person who approves proposals on behalf of the region. So this would be your SPO proposal analyst who has signing authority. There's also the signing official, same role. Right? So again, that would be that SPO analyst. So these systems don't have all of these roles. They have each system has some of these roles and they may use different verbiage, but I think it gives you a good idea. So these are the kind of the 3 ones you would see for SPO. And a system that, might have something different. So it's really important to read it. Any questions about the roles? Okay. So Cayuse Research Suite. Cayuse is a suite of research administration products. At UC Davis, we use SP for our internal approval and routing process, and we use 424 for our system-to-system submissions to most federal agencies. So I'm not going to go in detail about this. If people want to learn more about the two systems, we have overview slides and we have other classes, I think. But at this point, everyone in here knows the two systems, right? So Cayuse SP isn't always. Cayuse 424 is used to submit directly to the sponsor unless the sponsor mandates a different system. Or if it's in SF, you always use Fastlane. if it's NIH, you can make your choice of 424 or ERA Commons /assist. Now, the 424 profiles, so the 424 professional profiles, which you get to from Cayuse 424, actually drive your profile in SP. So everyone who's going to work on the proposal process at UC Davis needs a profile in 424. It is critical. Even if you're not going to use 424, it is very important. So it's investigators, senior personnel, contract and grant staff, anyone else who's going to be assisting, right? You want to make sure they're set up. Now, the good thing is, I can't remember how often, but we do get a feed from the payroll system and import users, but it's not all the time. So if you try to log in and you can't, or it says profile not found, you can email orcayusehelp@ucdavis.edu. And I think I probably have a slide about how to do that. If not in this class, I do in the professional profiles class. But essentially, we need an employee ID. So someone needs an employee ID and a Kerberos. They have to have a Kerberos to be able to get in. So if it's someone who doesn't have a Kerberos ID yet, get that set up, and then email orcayusehelp and give us their Kerberos user ID, their email address, and their employee ID if you know it. And it's really great to have the employee IDs in there because then it will auto-populate with their payroll information, and so you can make sure that's relatively accurate for when they're applied to grants. All right. The Cayuse SP approving unit list is actually driven in part by your profile because an investigator's department in 424 and their 424 profile is what is automatically added as their home unit when they're added to an investigator research team tab of an internal processing form in Cayuse, because it's going to route to their unit head for approval. That's why it's important to keep that 424 list accurate, because you can really avoid the dreaded stuck in routing issue if you're keeping it accurate for your people, because then whenever others add them to a grant, it's automatically the correct unit. Now, if it's not the correct unit, say you're adding someone outside of your unit that you don't have access to their profile to the investigators research team tab in SP, you can change it on that tab. It won't change their profile, so it won't change what's their default unit, but you can change it so it doesn't get stuck in routing. So I can't stress that enough. If you note, pay attention when you add them and make sure it doesn't have, parentheses that say use and another department code, because if it says that, delete them and re-add them, but change that code. If they're not in your unit and you have a good relationship with them or their admin, ask them, say, hey, do you want to update their profile? Because then you'll be avoiding all of these issues. If not, just change it for yours and make sure it's correct, right? And do it for your people. Now, I like to keep mine's really not that accurate because I use it to show people things. So it has like a really high salary and some things that I play with just to show how it works. But ours aren't as important to keep accurate as far as at the department admin level, because you're not going to be driving that routing chain. So if you're given proposal edit access to a proposal, it doesn't route to your department for approval. However, I say it's a good business practice just to always keep it accurate. I would always keep mine up to date too. If I didn't do the training. I think my unit's correct, but I play with the salary a lot. It's the only way you can make yourself get this huge raise. I just wish it wasn't like monopoly money. Any questions about that? Okay, we'll talk more about routing, but if you have any questions, it's super important, so I want you to ask them. It's a very important part. It's critical to how we use the system. All right, so SP, we know proposal, application, routing, and approval process. The PI and all co-PIs must certify. Department or unit heads authorize for all of those added to that tab. If School of Medicine is involved, the dean authorization is also required. I think maybe that's the only one. I don't know if VetMed does or not, but School of Medicine definitely does. And then, of course, we do our review and approval in there. You can access your award and sub-award documents and initiate requests for advance accounts, pre-award spending, when appropriate and necessary. The benefits are great. I need to take out the proposal reports though, because as I mentioned earlier, don't use the reporting tab right now. Those reports are not accurate. If you want to see, you can do some reporting from the proposal dashboard. So if you're going into proposals in my units or my proposals or awards in my unit or my awards, those lists are accurate and you can export them to Excel. So if you're going to do any type of reporting, use that. Don't use the reporting tab at the top. We've got the online routing. You can see the status in real time, and it's a data repository. Cayuse 424, I already talked about. We use it to submit federal proposals, except to the NIH. You can use 424 or Assist. NSF, you can only use Fastlane. Do not use 424. Opportunities that are not being offered in Cayuse, you would use their sponsor mandated system or method. It might be email. It might be their own system. NASA, you use Inspires, right? We're not going to do anything to make you not get that proposal accepted. All right. How do they interact, Cayuse and Cayuse 424? So this is the way it interacts at UC Davis. We do not use the pairing function because it causes some issues for us as far as if you pair your SP proposal with a 424 proposal, it locks a lot of your 424 proposals, so therefore you can't make the needed edits during our review. You can still upload documents, but you wouldn't be able to make small changes to the budget, for example. So do not pair, never pair. But the 424 professional profiles, right? I talked about that is really how it interacts mostly, because that is going to drive the contact information in both 424 and SP for the research team member and the admin people. So like I talked about, keeping our profiles current, making sure we have the needed profiles. And it affects our routing and approvals list. And SP or 424. In Cayuse SP, you're going to upload your internal documents. So that could be your internal budget. If you're requesting a PI exception, or if you have cost sharing commitments, anything internal that doesn't get submitted to the sponsor, you would be uploading in SP. Also, any items needed for the proposal review assignment, and if they're not in 424 yet. So I don't know if I have it here, but that is at a minimum for your proposal to be assigned. In addition to the PI and co-PI certifications and authorizations, we need scope of work, can be draft, budget and budget justification. They can be draft as long as there's not going to be significant changes, because you don't want to have to go back for the approval again, right? If the sponsor does not require a budget and or budget justification, we cannot require it either. We highly recommend it, even if you're not submitting it to the sponsor, but we cannot require it. If you're working with a PI that says this does not require a budget and or budget justification, and I am not going to submit it, just put that in your submission notes before you submit for routing, and it will not delay assignment, okay? Because our intake desk is just looking to make sure those minimum documents are there, the authorizations are there, and not just, I mean, it's a lot, but they're looking at that, and they don't have time to, I don't want to say it that way, but they're not able to go and like read every proposal program guidelines. It would take a long time to get assigned. So it's not that they're not capable, it's just that would really delay the process of assignment. So, and the proposal analyst does kind of a reconfirm of that. 424 is where you would upload the sponsor application materials. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look. Go ahead and log in to our test site here, ucdavis-uat.cayuse424.com. And if you can't read this information, it's on your handout. We're all going to log in as Amy admin, and the password is training. Let me just see. I want to do this. Okay, yeah, so I'm going to log in with you, and I think I just want to kind of show you a little bit. Minimize. Okay, so what I want to do is just take a moment to kind of look at the dashboard and talk about it a little bit. But I want everyone to log in as Amy admin. That way we are all seeing the same things as we move forward. Okay, so I'm going to go to Cayuse SP. And leave that first tab open because we may go back into it. All right, so from here, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about how we use this dashboard. So first of all, this is what I'm saying not to use, the reporting tab. Don't use it, okay? I think it will be something that will be used later on, but it's best to get your reporting directly from these areas right now. We all know this is how we start a new proposal. Everyone in this room and online knows that. My proposals, you'll see it has the number 56 out here. So what my proposals is, my proposals list all of the proposals that I either created, which makes me the proposal owner, as well as any that I may have been added to on the investigator research team tab as a proposal editor or as a co-I, a postdoc. Although I don't think you should, the only time you should add postdocs there is if you're trying to get approval for like cost shared effort or something. There's no need to add them in SP other than that. You just add your senior personnel. So the 56 means that I have 56 unsubmitted ones, which seems to mean that Amy is just lagging. I mean, look at how old some of these are. Oh my goodness. Okay, yeah, right? So it's really, I like this list though, and then down on the bottom, this is where I'm talking about export to CSV. So you can export this to an Excel file. Because this is in, these are all unsubmitted, you'll see up here, I'm in my unsubmitted proposals. I have the options to edit, copy, and delete. I encourage you not to copy proposals because we have found that it can cause some issues with routing. Sometimes it like brings in these units that shouldn't be there and we can't get rid of them. If you copy one, it's at your own risk. If you notice you copy it and it has units that shouldn't be listed there, delete it and create a new one because we can't fix it right now. You're gonna have to delete it. So if you decide to copy it and see if it works, go ahead. But check the approving units list before you get too far. Don't waste a bunch of time. Sometimes it works fine. We can't figure out what the factors are and Cayuse is researching it for us. But I would encourage you not to do it. Delete, you can delete unsubmitted proposals that you created. You can also search by any of these fields, so at one time or all time. So I could say, I just want to see the ones that Charlie is a PI on, and maybe just ones to the NCI. Why didn't that work? I'm trying to show you how cool it is, and it doesn't want to work. There, NSF, that one worked. So you can do it, you could say, or maybe like I was changing an admin unit, where's that? Because so I know that some of your lists can get really unwieldy when you have a lot of investigators you're working with. So I love this, and I wanna show you how you can export it, or not export it, you just go down here and click export. But I wanted to show you how to filter it because it does have a lot of functionality. Submitted proposals, these are all the ones that I created or was added as a proposal editor or some other role. And it has the status. Again, I can search just like any of, just like this other list here. And this is the status. So you can even search by status. So what the submitted tabs means submitted for routing. That's what that means. So anything that has been submitted for routing that you are on that tab or created will be listed here. You can search it in all of those other ways. And as you can see, you can copy it. I think if I was going to copy a proposal, I would make sure that it was like involving the same units, and then I think you might not have as much issue. I'll admit I would probably try it. You shouldn't try it, but I know how I am, and I probably would. And just check that approving unit list. You can delete it and just actually create a new one if you need to. But I don't even think it brings in a whole lot. So I would think creating a new one is actually the best way to go. I just like to break things. Proposals in my unit. So this works the same way. These are all of the proposals that you have proposal data access, which is a role we'll talk about in a moment. So this would be anything that was submitted through an admin unit that you have proposal data access for. And it doesn't matter the status. You can see it has unsubmitted, PS review, etc. But it doesn't mean that I can edit these. It just means I can view them unless I have proposal editor, and then it would be on that other tab. Advanced account inbox is where the pre-award spending approver approves pre-award spending requests. So if there's an advanced account request submitted, this is where they would go in to approve it, and they would have a number out here indicating there was something there, and they would get an email. My awards and awards in my unit work just like proposals, except for these are just awards, right? So these are just the things that have been awarded. So my awards list all of the awards that I am on that investigator team tab on. So if I created it, but I didn't add myself as a proposal editor, I'm not gonna get automatic access to that award. I'm gonna have to email SPO and ask them for access, which will give it to you. But if you add yourself as a proposal editor, when you create your IPF, you'll have automatic access as soon as the award is built. So I highly encourage you to do that. You can search just like I was doing the other ones, and you can export to CSV as well and then format. I love that because then you can just format it however you need. Active projects and inactive projects. So active projects are all the projects that I'm listed on that people tab again. So a project is that overarching folder. So for example, project number A200126 would have all of the proposals, awards, and subawards associated with that project in it, right? So if I just click it, let me go to a different one actually, because I was testing something that might not have all that. So here I can see the project information. You shouldn't be able to edit it, so I must have given Amy some access. Awards, these are all the associated awards. I can get to them just by clicking on them. The budget overview is an overview of all of those awards that are submitted here. Accounts we don't use. Personnel are all the people that are associated with the project, so all the awards, all the proposals. Here are the proposals. Generally, there should just be one. I don't know, there might be rare circumstances where you would have multiple, but most times we have one proposal, but you could have multiple awards if that award's coming in increments. Subcontracts is where you access all of your subawards. Notes, this will have notes for the entire project, and you can say all so that you can filter this to show you all, and then it tells you where the note was placed. So I really like this. And the attachments works the same way. And no, she doesn't have any extra access. I don't know why she could do that. But anyway, so this is all of the attachments. Right? So it tells you where they were uploaded on each one. Okay. I don't know why this is staying up. Okay. Any questions about the kind of overview of that? Let's go back and actually look at 424 real quick. So back on this main tab, let's go to 424. And really, the main things I want to show you here are the tabs are just the same as the list. Opportunities is where you always start your proposal unless you're starting a subaward proposal or something that doesn't have a call. I don't know why you would do that. But you go to opportunities, find the opportunity, and start the proposal from there. Proposals is where you access proposals that have already been created, or if you need to create like a subaward proposal, where a subawardee, you would go directly to proposals and create that proposal. Professional profiles are where we manage all those profiles. Institutional profiles are all the different institutions that have profiles in here. So if you're say you're adding a sub-recipient and you need to make sure they're in here first, this is where you would go and see if they have that. Reports, there are some reports you can do in here. And settings, I'm not sure about because I only do the admin settings. So I'm not really sure what you could do with that. Okay. So now, no questions? Okay, because it's very important to have a good understanding of the rules right? Or just an idea, because we still in SPO have to refer sometimes to documents because we want to make sure that we're remembering things correctly too. Okay, role management. So role managers are people out in units that give access to their units to other people. You're the ones who establish roles, right? So they're responsible for coordinating with the chair, the director, whoever that unit head is, to ensure that they have the appropriate role delegation. They grant access, like I said. So for someone to be established as a role manager, that is the only role that SPO gives. The role managers grant all of the other levels of access out in the units. To get that, your unit head must request that you be added as a role manager, and they can email us at orcayusehelp@ucdavis.edu to make that request. We really just need them to give us your name and email. If it's your Kerberos, that would be wonderful, but I know your chair may not know your Kerberos or think about looking that up, right? But that'll allow us to grant you as a role manager. They just need to say what unit or units, because sometimes there's multiple ones, and we'll give you that access. And then you provide also assistance to the staff and faculty in your unit regarding using Cayuse, because role managers are really thought of as being able to get out there and provide a little more assistance to someone in your unit, kind of serve as that expert. And that's why it's part of our ERA Train the Trainer certificate, because that's the idea, right? I want to train all of you to be able to serve as a good resource and train new staff or whoever you need to train. Not that I'm not here to help you, but I can't get out there and train everybody one-on-one. So I want to try to build all of our knowledge out there as best we can. There's also, I'll talk about it here. So the IPF approver. So these are the critical roles, right? The first one is the role manager. We have to have a role manager. We have been known to go in and just set up a chair as an IPF approver if they don't have a role manager yet. I mean, we will do that, trust me. We will help there. But it's important for all of the units to have someone who can manage that yourselves, because you can take access away, you can grant access on the fly, and you can make sure that it's appropriate. If you need to remove a role manager, just email us. I don't know if you can do that or not. You can try it. If it doesn't work, email Cayuse Help, and we'll remove them. You also, each unit has to have an IPF approver. This is the person that approves the proposals for that admin unit, as well as approves effort for that unit, for any of those investigators. It's usually the unit head, but they can delegate that to whoever they want that they feel meets the policy, and that's in the role delegation authorization form. There is a link to that in the materials today. So if your chair wants to delegate the role to a director, or, I mean, usually we would think of it as an academic, but it is up to their interpretation of the policy of how they want to do that. It's the chair, the unit has responsibility. So whoever they want to delegate that to then would be able to go in and approve on the behalf of that unit. So many units have multiple. Or your chair's on vacation, right? And that's another reason it's great to do it. Yeah, you can list multiple ones, but just remember they all get notified at the same time. And sometimes it causes confusion, but if they go in there, it will just not show on their to be reviewed tab anymore. It will show on their previously reviewed tab. So they could tell, but I actually encourage that. I think in most cases it makes sense to have multiple people there. Some people, they have it just one person, and then when that person goes on vacation, they add another person and they take them off. But we need the role delegation authorization form. You don't have to do that every time they make a change. It's just the department head or unit head saying that they understand what the policy is, it's written there, they'll abide by it, and they're also responsible to work with the role manager to make sure they know who's all there. So as a role manager, I would make sure my unit head knew who was all on that list, right? Anytime you make changes, I make sure they knew. And it depends on your working relationship with them as well, but I'm very much into documentation myself. Pre-award spending approver is the person who endorses advance account requests for that unit, so that they sign off on it before it comes to SPO for review. Other critical roles are proposal data access and award data access. Proposal data access gives someone view access to all the proposals in that admin unit, regardless of the status, and also allows them to initiate advanced account requests. Award data access gives them view access to all of the awards in that admin unit. So those are critical roles, all of them, but these three are required. It's going to get stuck. Now, this one, the pre-award spending approver would only get stuck in the situation of an advanced account request. That's the only time that that comes into play, but it would certainly get stuck and we're not going to see it. It's not going to go anywhere. The role manager and the IPF approver are must-haves. Must-haves. And then the other two, the proposal data and award data access, I call them critical because I think there are others that need access to that data, but it's not going to stop your proposal or anything like that. Okay, I already talked about delegations. The unit head can delegate according to UC Davis PPM 330-31. And the role delegation authorization form, which there's a link to in the resources section that's actually spelled out. But again, I'll make sure you all have the online versions of these materials. So they just complete that, sign it, and email it to us. And it has the policy listed right there on it, so they can read it and make that determination. And you don't have to put who they're giving access to. It's just them taking ownership of that. Yep. Oh, and if we don't have this form on file and it's authorized by someone that's not the unit head, we are going to reject it unless we have that form, because it's important that the unit head is approving that before we work on it. All right, questions? Okay, everybody's so excited this morning. Eat some candy. Hey, buddy. Okay, so this is something that you don't need any specific level of access to do. All you need is a profile so that you can access SP. That is literally the only thing you need.
Don't put them right there.
Okay, there's some nerds in there. Like, I love nerds. All right, so identifying role assignments. I think that it's really important for when you're working on a proposal, if you're going to be adding people from other units to that investigators research team tab as key personnel and that are going to affect the routing process, I encourage you to go in here and make sure they have an IPF approver set up. If they don't, you can reach out to them and be like, reach out to that investigator and say, what unit should I be using? Is this the correct unit? And then you can, reach out to the admin if you have a comfortable relationship with them and say that they're not set up. Or you can reach out to OR Cayuse Help and we will try to assist in that process. I say, though, to start with them because it might be that they just use a different unit code or something like that. So I would always start with the person in question. So you can follow along if you want, but I think I have these screenshots for you in here. So you would go to the main suite and go to Research Contacts. Oh, no, I'm having you practice. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. And then you're going to select Research Contacts. And then you want to select List. And we're going to find this specific unit code. So you can search by unit code or unit name. If you know the unit code, it's probably a little quicker because then you don't have all of the other ones. But just find that one and select it. Select View. And then let me do this. So we're in Research Contacts. And there's two ways to do this. You can select List right here, or you can click in the field and the list will come up. And then this one is actually going to be at the top, but I like to do Control F right here and 0, 3, whatever I'm looking for, because that Control F it brings it up so much quicker. So I think I said this one, and we'll do View. And then I can see all the people listed, their contact information, and what roles they have. So you can see if someone's a role manager. You'd always be looking for IPF approver because that's what you need to make sure they have at least one of before you submit a proposal that they're involved in. And if you do that, that will help avoid the dreaded issues. Did I go to the wrong code? Is it Ag and Environmental Science Dean's Office? Oh, see, this is different. So go to list. And then that has use 030. Yeah, so I think that's why. So see, that says use 03. You want to actually check 03. And that's actually, let me go back and show, because this is exactly the issue that we run into. So when I go to this list, you're going to see that right here it says use 030000. The actual unit code is 01, but it's telling you to use this one instead. So that's exactly where those issues come in. And we've been able to mitigate a lot of them, but it's still going to happen as long as those 424 profiles aren't up to date. And it's not really the fault of anyone. What happens is you add their employee ID, and it's going to pull in 424. You add their employee ID to their professional profile, and it pulls in whatever unit is associated with their payroll. So a lot of schools, like the School of Medicine, has multiple codes, and they use a different one for C&G, for contracts and grants, than they do for payroll. And so you want it to be the one that's used for contracts and grants. And we did work with the School of Medicine Dean's Office to, I think for the most part, we did a very thorough job of identifying which one should be used, but it still crops up on occasion. So it's not really something Spo can determine, because we have done, I have personally run like all the reports and everything that I can to identify what we could, so it's really up to those departments. The health system, not School of Medicine, but the hospital can also be complicated, because the investigators from hospital units tend to not be associated with anything that a unit that's used for grants. So the hospital, their grants usually go get counted under the School of Medicine. So that's why that's a little bit different. If you have this happen, so the pharmacy has their own IPF approver. You can add pharmacy people, and as long as it's that code, it's fine. It'll go through. All of the other ones that I know of, though, if you have an investigator, say you're adding like a nurse practitioner, then change their, when you add them to the investigator research team tab, change their unit code to the admin unit. So say you're running it through your center, change it to the center, and then get an email from their unit head saying they approve the effort and upload it into Cayuse. And then you've got all your approvals. You don't have to worry about, you know, that unit head saying, I didn't want that person involved in this grant. And it won't get stuck in routing. And that is on our website. It's an FAQ as well, because it does come up a little bit. All right. So now, any questions? Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to manage a research role, and then I'm going to have you just go ahead and do it, okay? So I'm just going to, you can go ahead and select Manage Research Roles from that screen you're on. And then, I mean, if you want to do this with me, go ahead. Actually, let's just do it together. Let's just do it together. I think that'll make more sense. Okay. So select Manage Roles, and then look for your name on this list. If your name is here, select it. And if your name is not here, go to Add Contact. I'm gonna do myself. Okay, so I found me, right? I'm going to show you the Add Contact screen, though. Add Contact, you would click in the first name, type in your last name, and hit Search. And then if you find yourself, select it. If you don't, this is UAT. Don't freak out about it. Just use Amy Admin or somebody, so it's fine. But this is how you would add it. Now, say this is like real life, then you would email us and say, hey, I can't find this person. Right? Or first maybe email them and say, what's your Kerberos? Can you log into Cayuse? Maybe they're listed under a different name, because, you know, a lot of people have their maiden names and they just keep them forever, but then they like change, or they're listed under their maiden name, but they go by their married name, or vice versa. So then you update your 424 profile. So if you notice anything is inaccurate here in this one, not UAT, but in real life, in the production site, if you notice your profile is inaccurate here, then you go to 424 and you update your profile, and it will update overnight into SP. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to use myself and select go. And now, regardless of if you created a contact or found one, this is what you're going to see. Now, here is where you can grant permission to somebody else. So you're all, I don't think I'm a role manager for, oh, I am. So in here, select, or up here, select OVCR, sponsored programs. And then so sponsored programs doesn't have any units underneath it. But if it did, you could say this unit and all child units, and it would grant the same level of permission for everything underneath it. So that makes it easy when we do School of Medicine, like large changes, but it also, I won't go into it, but it complicates something on the back end for us. It's just crazy. But anyways, you can do that. And then here you decide what role you want to give them. So I'm going to say IPF approver, and do add role. And it's telling you it can take up to 10 minutes, but in general, it seems to be pretty instantaneous. You can also remove roles for any that you're a role manager on. So for example, you can see that somebody gave me pre-award spending approver access to these units. This is just because I was testing. I actually wouldn't. And so I can't remove roles if I'm not a role manager, but I can remove these roles because I'm a role manager. So this is where you maintain roles. Any questions? No? All right. So if you run into issues, you can let us know. The only units that are going to be available to you here are the ones you're listed as a role manager for. Yeah. There's no current roles, so I can't read the bottom. So if you're all logged in as Amy admin, that's probably why. Yeah, so you want to change this to OVCR. Let's try that. Oh, but you did your own profile, right? Because I said you to go into. I couldn't even find mine. But we're logged in as Amy. So let me. Yeah. So it should work if we're all logged in as Amy. That's really weird. Let me see what happens when I do this. Yeah, well that's what. Yeah, she can do that. Yeah, Amy can do whatever she wants for those. So I don't know why yours is doing this for you. Oh no, you know why? It's because you went in as yourself. So now, but if you go add role, so the reason is because you didn't. So you couldn't see any. Just said okay because you didn't have any roles there yet. Because Amy went into your profile and you didn't have any yet. So that's why. That's why. So now we've added one for you. Yes. Yeah, you're welcome. That's a good question. You threw me for a minute. I told you this morning. It's one of those mornings. So you don't even know. All right. So, and I hate to bore you. I know it seems pretty simple, but it's kind of funny because you get in and start doing things, and then it can get confusing when you don't expect it to, just like what we just experienced, right? So I want you to get comfortable with it. Also, we already did that. So also the thing I want to tell you is that if you want to play around in a system and you feel, you're nervous about it, use this UAT environment. Log in with the roles I gave you, the Amy admin. If you want to log in as a PI and see what it looks like to them, it's going to look the same, but say you want to add them and play around, you can log in as Charlie as well. That username is IPF approver. And the password is training. So if you ever want to do that, log in as IPF approver, and the password is training. Charlie has I add her as a PI, and I also have her with the IPF approver role, so I can play around. It's only in the UAT site. So if you ever want to play, you can do that. And I have a couple other ones, I think, too. But those are pretty good ones to play with. Internal processing form is IPF.
Is it lowercase?
When you enter the username, it doesn't matter. I always do lowercase, but it doesn't matter. But the password, I think, is training all lowercase, just like we did today, just like Amy. And there's also a pre-award spending approver. I think it's just pre-award, and the password is training as well. So I think it's helpful in our roles to have an idea of what they have to do, so that when they come to us, I'm like, I don't know what to do, where to go, we can show them, right? So, and if your PI calls me to show them, I'm gonna make them like look at the proposal. I do that. I've had a couple like, I don't know how to approve it. I'm like, okay, well, first you need to open this. And yeah, that way they remember it. Also, they should. I'm trying to like, they're agreeing to a lot of things when they certify their proposal, so they should know what they're agreeing to. That's my opinion. But I've worked for many people that were like, I trust you. I'm like, okay, well, if it's not right, it's not my fault. Okay. No, I've been lucky. I've worked with a lot of great people. I really have. Okay, so this is the proposal and routing process in Cayuse SP. The IPF for internal processing form is submitted for routing, and that's gaining all of those approvals, but also the certification, right? So department approvals and process. Then we need the PIs and the co-PIs to certify before we assign it. Unfortunately, it doesn't drive the auto routing process, so it's going to route to us even without their certifications, and we're gonna move it back to department approval and process, email them, and say, please certify it and email me back. We don't get notified when they certify it. We don't see it, so they have to let us know, and sometimes they forget. So it's very important I would say if you're working with PIs, we probably I don't know, I imagine they copy you on that email as well. They do? Okay, perfect. So I would just kind of watch for that, because you can also email us and say, hey, they certified it. I don't know if they told you, right? Because if you notice it's still in department approval and process and you know they certified it, email the help desk or Cayuse help. We'll move it back. Or your proposal analyst actually is better if you know who that is. Yeah, but actually it shouldn't be your proposal analyst yet. So it's gonna be the intake desk. So just email them back. It might be proposals at UC Davis, or it might be Cayuse help. Whoever emailed you, email it back. Let them know, hey, I noticed it's certified, but I don't know if they told you, right? That way you're doing everything you can do to make sure it moves through. The IPF approvers must authorize it, and then we move it to, after that's all done, after those operations are done, it comes to admin office and process. We assign it. If it's going to proposals, it'll say PS review, and their name will be listed in the specialist field. If it's going to awards, because it's an after the fact, it might say CS review, or it might just say funded, because once we build that award, it goes to funded. It doesn't mean your proposal, it doesn't mean the award was funded. It means we have an agreement. It doesn't mean it's executed, right? So it's funded, but it doesn't mean it's active. Yeah, so we'll go through the rest of the statuses. So that's going to be more at the award stage when you know that like you're good. But it'll be active. So your proposal will say funded, and your award will say active, and that's how you know you're good. Then once we approve the proposal for submission, or it's submitted to the sponsor, so if we approve it, say your PI is going to submit on their own, and it might say proposal approved, and then when they submitted to sponsor. If we're submitting, we go directly to submitted to sponsor. Often we just go directly to submitted to sponsor anyways, because it's an extra step. So that means it's been submitted to the sponsor. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. So go back to Cayuse SP. And we're gonna look at a proposal in here. So I'm gonna go over here, I'm gonna Cayuse SP, and go to My Proposals. And then you want to select submitted proposals. And in the proposal number, search for 19-0986. Sorry, I just got back from the South last week. My accent came back so strong. Okay. I thought, like, usually I drop it really quick. I think it's just because I'm talking so much right now. All right, so over here, you can see that this says it was funded. But like I said, funded doesn't mean that it's necessarily funded, like that it's active, right? So let's go ahead and go to the proposal and just select the hyperlink. All right, so here, can you look at this and tell me who my proposal analyst was? Yeah, it was me, right? It was, well, I'm Amy, so we're all Amy. It was Cassie. I'm gonna talk about Cassie in the third person. All right, yeah, and so was the award analyst, right? In this case, I'm listed both. And that could happen, maybe it was an after the fact, I don't know. All right, so down here is where I can see the approvals that have taken place. And this is also where you can see all the status. Now, yours is not, it should never look like a mess like this. But this is how you can see when it went to what status, right? All right, so over here, I can see that Charlie certified it on October 12th. And in this case, Charlie is also an IPF approver, as well as all of these. Oh, look, we have all these other people now. See, it was instant, right? That's kind of cool. Yeah, so any of us could have done it. Well, you all couldn't have at the time because you weren't on there in October. But it tells us who did, Charlie did, and then what time and day, right? Oh, wow, and look at this. This is 1018. I bet you this code is like a multiplication of something in this one. Anyways, okay. I got distracted by the number. And then down here, I can see that Cassie put it to funded at about 3:40 on October 26th, because the sponsor like loved this proposal, right? Like, gosh, that wasn't even 2 weeks. All right, compliance. This is gonna show me any of the compliance information that I entered on my IPF, or maybe that SPO found later. So you can see here, I have an associated IRB protocol as well as an animal one, because, oh, this is the one where I'm studying sociological factors in malaria transmission with cows. So anyways, okay. I was excited by that. Status history, every now and then I get creative and I try to come up with something that could actually be a project instead of just like, I mean, I think the other one said Odie's Toy Fun, like my dog needs more toys. So status history, this is exactly what was on the bottom of that other page. Advanced account, this is where you can request an advanced account and you can see the status of an advanced account. Awards, so here you could see any associated awards. And the status of the award is what lets you know if it's active. So you see it says pending. You can go to the award and select the award, or you can go to the project and select the project. And I think we're all familiar with the notes and the attachments tabs. Okay, so I want to point out here, whenever you're looking at, so if you go back to that approval screen, this is a different proposal. But so after you submit it for routing, hopefully you would have looked at the approving units list already and made sure it was okay, but things happen, right? Sometimes we're moving fast. That's my problem sometimes, I move too fast. So what you would do, as soon as you submit it for routing, go ahead and scroll down here and make sure that none of these lines are blank. If you see OR Cayuse help, that's also a problem. That should never be listed here. If you see my name is only okay under the internal cost sharing, INTL cost sharing. You'll see myself and I think 3 other people, and that's fine. But if you see Cassie Ovalero listed on anything other than cost sharing, if any of these are blank, or you see Cayuse help, email the help desk right away so we can move it to unsubmitted status and you can try to correct the issue with your approving units. It's probably going to be It could be the admin unit. If it's the admin unit, it's the one listed on the general tab, and it'll be number 1. But it's most likely going to be something on that investigators research team tab that you have to correct. And after you make the corrections, if that erroneous unit still shows on approving units, email the help desk, give us the proposal number, the name, and we'll try to help figure out what's going on, okay? If you copied it and you notice this, delete it and start over. Like I said, you shouldn't be copying proposals. If you do, check your approving units list before you move any further, because we cannot do anything about it other than going in and making ourselves approvers, and it gets messy. So in that case, we're just telling people to delete it and start over. And I'm trying to make sure enough people know that, so feel free to tell anyone who argues about it, say, Cassie says, there's nothing they can do. You're gonna have to delete it. All right. Okay, so does anybody have questions? I wanna talk about statuses, if not. All right, so I think you can see why I say this. I think this one is okay to attend on Zoom, right? It's a little bit less intense than some of our other classes. So, but it's so important, and I appreciate everybody coming here and being online, because I think that this is important. These routing issues especially are where we have the most hiccups and the most complexities. So I think understanding the routing issues and the roles just gives you such a strong foundation for that. I think it's important. It'll help so much with you and us. Okay, so statuses. Let's talk about these a little bit. All right, so we have, I've lumped these by the type of record they are. So you have proposal statuses. Unsubmitted means it has not been submitted for routing. You can think of that as a draft. It has not gone anywhere. You can still edit it. Proposal reopened will also show on your unsubmitted tab, but what it means is one of your IPF authorizer approvers rejected it. So look at the notes, see what they said, make the changes. It should, when that happens, it should only be like at that department or unit or college level. However, if I'm out at a training session or something and you've added a unit that I'm listed on because I know it shouldn't be used and I'm trying to catch it, I might reject it and just add a note because I want you to be able to move quickly. So sometimes, I don't know if anyone else in SPO does that, but I do that on occasion just because I don't want to slow you down. It goes back to unsubmitted. I think it might even email you and let you know. So check the unsubmitted tab if you get one of those emails. If it says reopen, that's the only difference. And it probably will not be me. I think I've done it once or twice, but I do want to warn you that it could be me, so just check the notes, and if so, I'll tell you why I did it. If you need more help, email the help desk, because if I did that, you know I'm not even available really. I just saw something and I was like, oh no, let's fix this quick. Okay, department approval and process means it's pending those IPF approvals. Also, if the intake desk gets it and it hasn't had those PI and co-PI certifications, we'll put it back in department approval and process as well. So if you notice something that you know already went to admin office and processes is back in department approval, check it out, see what's going on. We add a note as well, where I think we always add notes. Admin office and process means that we have received it in SPO, but it's not yet assigned. PS review means that it's under review by proposals. CS review or funded, right, means that it's under review by an awards analyst. Proposal approved means that it's been approved for submission, but not quite submitted. We generally don't use that status at all. I already talked about reopened. Submitted to sponsor means just that. Withdrawn is meaning that the PI withdrew. The PI said that she or he or they no longer wanted to submit. Not funded, the proposal wasn't funded by the sponsor. If it is a letter of intent or preliminary proposal that's invited for proposal, we still put that LOI or preliminary proposal in not funded status, but then we add a note that it's associated with this other proposal. Because what will happen is you'll have to create a whole other IPF for the full proposal. So it doesn't, if it's a pre-proposal and it says not funded, check the notes. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're not moving forward, just nothing really gets funded from a pre-proposal. It's always that full application. And you're gonna have to do a new one anyways, and it would double count our numbers, right? If we say the pre-proposal was funded and then the proposal was funded, we're reporting it twice. So that's why we do that. JIT request received, approved, and unsubmitted. So some sponsors request just-in-time information. I think NIH does that. And that's when you've submitted to the sponsor, but they want a little more information before they make a funding decision. That's a JIT. So if it's in received, that means SPO or the PI received a request from the sponsor and let us know about it. Most of them have to be approved, if not all of them, by us. So then we go to approved when that happens. If the PI decides not to submit that information, we put it to unsubmitted. That happens. A lot of times they want to wait and see what their review scores are before they decide to put any more work into it. Who could argue with that strategy? Yeah, that's just more work for nothing, right? So I've seen it happen in my old position where people would be like, well, I really didn't score that high, so I'm not going to do that. I get it. Sure, I wouldn't either. Funded, notice of award received by the sponsor, but it may not be executed. Again, that also could mean that we're reviewing it, right? But if we put it in funded, we have a notice of award. Awards. So if you have a funded proposal, you want to go to the award to see if it's active or pending. Active means that it's fully executed and routed to CGA. CGA gets a feed every business day, I think at like 4 a.m. or something like that, of new awards made active and obligated in that night before. So if it's active obligated, that means that the reporting designation is obligated because that amount of funding has been committed by the sponsor. So for example, if you get a 5-year NSF award, you will just have one award that covers all 5 years in Cayuse SP, and it will be active obligated. But if you get a 5-year award from NIH, then that first funding period will come in for the first project year, year 1. That'll be active obligated. All of the out years, years 2 through 5, will be active anticipated. Sorry, had to think about that. Active anticipated, because that means that the negotiations are done, but those out years are anticipated based on, the funding notice from the sponsor. They're not obligated for those out years. So that's the difference. So if it says active obligated, it's reported to CGA. Whenever the increment comes in, it will be changed to active obligated and it will go to CGA. So that's our trigger. Subaward statuses. So if you have any outgoing subrecipients, then on that subawards tab, you will find the status. Awaiting admin department means that we're waiting on something from you or your PI. Awaiting award manager analyst means that we're waiting on something, you're waiting on something from us. We need to do something in SPO. It says award analyst. It's really a sub-award analyst, but that's still an award, right, at that point. Awaiting the subcontractor means that we're waiting on something from that subrecipient, and fully executed means that it is done and has been sent to CGA. They probably get it the same. I don't know when their feed goes, but they will get it automatically. All right, questions? Because we're doing really good on time. Yeah.
For the status withdrawn, if say you started in SP, they decide, okay, well, I'm not going to what if you delete it?
Okay, so status withdrawn. If your PI, you start a proposal for them. Say PI Sally comes and says, hey, I want to submit this proposal to whatever. You start that proposal. Before you submit it for routing, they decide not to. Yes, you can just delete it. You can just delete it. And that should not be an issue. If you've uploaded attachments, I think it still wouldn't be a problem. But try to delete the attachments first.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes that can cause issues with like the back end. So if you're going to delete a proposal, go ahead and like delete all of those attachments as well first, and then delete the proposal. The only time we would put it in withdrawn is if it's already come to us. Maybe sometimes we submit it and then they decide to withdraw it. Yeah, but if we're worked on it, we want to keep it in the system because it's also a workload tracker. But if it's not been submitted yet, you can just delete it. Even if it's been submitted and we haven't assigned it, nobody's approved it, you could probably email us and ask us to put it in unsubmitted so you can delete it. Yeah, I don't think we would ever delete it, but you could delete it. Yeah. Okay, so let me just make sure there's no questions on the chat. I'm not sure this is going to tell me. Hello. Oh, it's not coming up. All right, so we'll just talk about resources. I love my little resources picture. I use that on everything. I don't know why. The small things in life. Okay, so you have websites and forms that you can use, right? So we've got the Cayuse Research Suite where you can access SP and 424. There's a lot of user guides and videos. You can get to everything from sparkucdavis.edu/training. If you just go directly to Spark, the tab actually says Cayuse Training, but that's the link. The role delegation authorization form can be found on our form section at the Office of Research website. That's a direct link to the form, and that's the one that your IPF, your unit head, would need to send if they're going to be delegating authority to approve proposals. I actually recommend anytime they want to add a role manager, like it's the first time, have them do it, because then it's on file, right? So even if they're like, no, I'm not going to delegate it, but if you sign this form and send it in, you could change your mind when you're on vacation, and we don't have to do anything about it. We can just make the change. So I recommend just having that, send that with the email to Cayuse Help. There's also the Cayuse Research Suite Support Center. I would encourage you to look through our help materials before you go there, because UC Davis uses the system a little bit differently. So to make sure you're getting the correct answers, check what we have. We have FAQs, we have handbooks, we have our own help desk. If you're having a problem in Cayuse, email OR Cayuse Help. And if it needs to go directly to Cayuse, we will get it there, and we can track the tickets. Don't submit tickets to them. Let us do it, because then we might be able to solve your problem, or maybe it's a bigger problem or maybe we know a workaround, or I don't know. There's a lot of things, right? So we need to know of those things. We have our training page, which all of you must know about because you're here today or online today. I'm always looking for new topics. So seriously, if there are topics that you really want to learn about, let me know. Again, if it's not something that I can address, I can get you maybe in touch with the correct department, but I'm really looking at ways to build out our training. I want everyone to feel comfortable in what they're doing as much as I can help. These are just links to some of the other systems. You've got NIH ERA Commons and NIH Assist Getting Started Guide. I don't remember if this is a long one or not, but it's really helpful. You've got some NSF Fastlane materials. Apparently, it looks like I put it there. Oh no, this is the help one, and then this is directly to the system. Proposal Central, which is sometimes used. Smart Simple, UCOP uses this when you're applying to UCOP. Email addresses, right? You've got our help desk for Cayuse issues. For non-Cayuse ERA issues, you have our other help desk. Again, yes, it's the same person right now, but it might not always be. It might always be, but it helps us just kind of manage that. And some of us have access to each box, right? So it just gets you to the right people. The Spark listserv. So Spark stands for Sponsored Programs Administrative Research Kiosk. And that's where we have our training materials. They also have a listserv that they send out emails every now and then. And you can go to that main website, this Spark training website, the user guides, that one. If you go to that main website, on the main page, it has lists of the other ERA systems, and we tried to build that a little bit out too. There's the CNG listserv, so that's everyone that does research administration, I think, should be on that listserv. Ahmad sends out emails not too frequently. He just sends out important things, changes at the sponsor level, things we need to be aware of from UCOP, maybe a training opportunity every now and then, reminders about the research admin forum that we have, right? He sends out all that. So if you're not on that, I encourage you to get on it. And you can get to the listservs from if you go to Office of Research Resources, then there's a listservs tab, I think, and you can get to all the different ones. I don't know if the Grant Coordinators Network is on there, though, and this is a good one. This is run out of the Interdisciplinary Research Support Unit in Office of Research, and that's really for like kind of pre-SPO things, but it's research development, and they talk about writing proposals and budgets and all of those things. So they're a really great resource. That Coordinators Network, I think, is a great thing to be a part of. We've got staff development classes. Today, you're all getting half credit for this one on the bottom. And if you came to the 424 class, then you know you're getting credit for this whole class. But these are the classes that we offer. I think they're all on there. So some of them are part of the RACs and some of them are the ERA training, train the trainer program, and the ERA class is both, right? I think ERA is important for all of us to do these jobs now. So many sponsors, not just the university, but so many sponsors have gone to using electronic systems. And so that's why it's now part of, it's a requirement of that series. I don't know that it always was. All right, so if you have any questions, let me know. Please don't forget your evaluation forms. I will send the forms to the 2 people online today, and I will also send a link to the training page with all of the updated materials when I have that. So if there's no questions online, I'm gonna stop the meeting now, at least the recording. All right, well, thank you. I'm gonna stop it.